Welcome to Sullivan Street, and this is what I'm calling the almost or kind of single show, as we're going to focus on Mrs. Potter's Lullaby and Miami. I mean, two regular songs, two fan favorites. In fact, I just had looked up something on the net, and one of the first things that came up in Reddit was like, "What's your favorite Crow song?" from like a year ago, and someone's like, "It was always Mrs. Potter's. Now it's Miami." So it just shows you those songs among Crows fans are very popular. But first, we will say hi to Chris. Chris, how you doing?
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be back with you, Eric.
Yeah,
I'm
it's been a
excited to
bit.
hear because I heard that you caught a plane to Barcelona because your city was a drag, so to
That
speak.
is exactly what happened, and the plane went right to Barcelona direct. My city is a drag, quite frankly. We were talking about it in the blue room, if you will, the green room, blue room. Anyway, so and then guess what? We decided because it's been way too long, kind of like that old girlfriend that you're like, that you occasionally date but you can't commit to. Kind of grows historian Jeff Harkness. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Because funny, I said to Jeff, I was like, I want you as a regular occasional guest, and I mean that. And I think it's been a couple episodes, so thanks for joining us again.
Of course.
Um, yeah, so I'll briefly talk about my holiday in Spain. And so that was on my, despite maybe my bank accounts and my wife's and maybe work's second guessing of it, it was on my bucket list to do, in part because, as I mentioned on the podcast before, I was actually living overseas for a little bit and had a chance to do this. And the Spanish shows in 2022 were either canceled or pseudo canceled, or Adam was sick. I think there was three scheduled, and I think one went through the entirety. Maybe Barcelona was first, and they did that, and then the second one he was sick and ended after like 15 songs or 13 or something like that back in 2022, and then canceled the third show, which was in Bilbao, which was the one that I was supposed to attend and was about to attend 5 hours. I was at the Guggenheim Museum, got an email and said, your show in 5 hours is canceled. I was very upset, but I was like, maybe I'll get a chance to do it again. And this time I did, and flew to the back to back. So I flew into Barcelona, and they didn't take a day off between. They played in Madrid the next day, so I took a bullet train, which we basically do not have in the United States. It was quick, $100, got to Madrid in whatever it was, 3 hours, and watched them there, and then took a train back. I'll give a shout. I said to you guys, the funniest thing is there has not been a lot of negativity about this tour. But on Reddit though, occasionally someone's criticizing the set list or whatever. But right after the Madrid show, which I thought was basically the best show I've seen in 10 years, someone said that it was a complete disaster. So I might have to start a new thread about that because it was so strange. I thought it was amazing, and Adam was not sick. The band was on point, as they say here in Southern California, and yeah. So we'll talk about that.
What was your
Uh,
favorite? What was your favorite moment from the shows?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do give a shout. It wasn't too much, but there were a lot of international fans, and I might mention that there. It's still majority, especially the Madrid show. I think the majority were locals, and the Barcelona show as well. But in line there were people. There were a bunch of people from Malta for whatever reason that made me laugh. So a shout out to them. A guy came in from France. A guy came, I'm talking about like the people that were like the first 10, 20 in line. And I met quite a bit of Americans. It's funny. I didn't see a lot of people with like. Usually, you see Americans all over wearing like their pro sports gear or college gear, and I didn't see a ton of that in Spain. Although I tried to stay away from the heavily touristed areas, but I actually saw a guy with a Syracuse shirt, and I think I've seen him at a different concert. It was one of the few college things I went to, and I don't know if maybe he's from, and his daughter goes there, but they flew in just to those shows. I guess he's a big Crows fan and said to his family, every year you can choose which show to go to. And this year they chose Spain. So he flew them out there. So I'm not the only one, I guess, that had the Cedar Holiday in Spain on my bucket list.
I'm
So
curious what the history is for them. What other shows they've
yeah,
chosen
I
over.
know. A couple of those people I talked to after the show was over, and I didn't want to. And I think it was two families, one in Madrid, one in Barcelona, and they came with like a family of 4 or 5 from the U.S. And I did want to know a little more about it. Yeah, I should have got their details, and a couple of them I told about the podcast they didn't know. So hopefully the words continues to spread. I did, as I told them, just real quickly, I was able to sneak front row next to the gate both times. Not enough to get to the center, but that's fine. One of them, I was literally right in front of Bryson, and I could basically touch the stage, which of course I did not. I did not want to be annoying or kicked out. And then in the second show, I stood right in front of Dan, which I hadn't been in front of Dan in a while. That's where I used to be when I was younger. At the Barcelona show. So the set list for both. Look, they did not add any songs for the European tour. They basically have almost like, there's a couple they might swap out here and there overall, like we know this year, like Big Yellow Taxi or Hard Candy, but they've pretty much been playing those two almost every time now. So there's really only like 3 spots where they're even subbing in everything. Now, again, don't forget, they're playing all 5 of their new songs. And I'll give them a pass for that, because that's exactly what I want to hear, is all 5 new songs. And I told some people next to me, some liked it, some didn't. A lot of people that I talked to next to me, of course, there were some hardcore fans there like me, no doubt. There's a lot of fans, though, that they had the first 3 albums. Maybe they had the 4th, didn't listen to it as much. Some of them bought the new one, maybe only listened to it a couple times. So, I'm trying to put myself in some of their shoes sometimes too, that it was one of their favorite bands ever, but just maybe hasn't followed them as deeply as we have. So the only ones they're really plugging in is when they do the acoustic. There's like a 3 set songs that they do acoustic. And
there's some stuff early in the set, right?
Yes, and there's always 1 or 2 early in the set. So on the first one, they played all the songs I wanted to. So they played Mrs. Potter's, and they played Anna Begins. So those were both amazing. First of all,
they knew you were coming, Eric.
They knew I was coming.
Prepared for you.
We're going to talk about Mrs. Potter's. First of all, Spaceman in Tulsa, I do think that's a great opening song. It's energetic. It's like, but you don't have to start with like Mr. Jones or whatever. But if someone wants to hear a new song that's kind of energetic, and he's starting off, I'm a rock and roll star, right? Deal with it. And I think the crowd, that the band gets into it, is, I think they like playing that in the beginning. Hey, spoiler alert! I love all the new 5 songs. Both times I thought the crowd was they were receptive to all of them. I mean, of course, Virginia Through the Rain is a little quiet, so they're not going to be jumping up and down. I was kind of surprised both times the crowd was really receptive to Boxcars. I think it's because it's a rocker, and a lot of their new songs, it's shortly after the acoustic portion of the set list. So I think that was part of it. So the crowd, they play God of Ocean Tides, which I love. And Washington Square. So I guess, he always makes a joke that maybe the European fans don't know The One by Taylor Swift, because she might not be as popular in Europe as she is in the US. And I think that's generally true. One funny thing that I was just remembering, that he gave this story both times about, when he talks about With Love from A to Z, which Jeff, I know you agree with me, that song is just amazing. And I think it's a real treat to listen to that live. I don't think the crowd appreciates because it's new to them, most of them, how great that song is, how great the lyrics are. And both times he basically says, and it's funny because he kind of bites himself in the foot a little, or, steps on his own feet a little, because he says basically, when it comes to the story of his life, he used to always say, "Round here is the story of my life, but now it's from A to Z." And partly because he fell in love with, his girlfriend. He basically says that without saying that. And he says it's also a tribute to his whole career and everything like that. But when he mentions Round Here, the Spanish crowd thinks he's going to play Round Here, because at that part of the set list, it didn't happen yet. But yeah, Under the Aurora is great live, because it has a little crowd participation. And then I sent to these guys, watch it online. Surprisingly, so a lot of people were recording, especially in Madrid. I haven't seen a lot of the recordings online, but the Barcelona show, which had maybe limited people recording, the people that did were close up, and they have good quality video, and it's up there. So check it out. I think Round Here was especially good with the Raining and I think Chris saw both times they did the entire Raining in Baltimore lyrics, right? They didn't miss one song, one word.
Yeah, no, which is awesome. I mean, I think that's one of the best. Um, it's one of the best Round Here alts. Raining in Baltimore, especially. I think they've been playing it very well, and I think Adam's really been kind of weaving it together in a really nice way this year.
Yeah, and of course, there's part of me that's like, oh, I'd like to hear him play the piano. It's probably not going to happen, but just to hear him do the words to "Raining in Baltimore" live is just something that does not happen very often. So that's a real treat. And yeah, Under the Aurora gets a crowd participation, and for the Barcelona show in particular, Holiday in Spain, when he mentions Barcelona and the crowd completely erupts, and the best was. Um, because not everybody's in the frame, but Adam loves it, and Jim has this huge smile on his face, and even Charlie starts to smile a little bit because Charlie is pretty much, he doesn't show a lot of emotion on stage. He's into it, but yeah, so that was great. Hey, Jim came out both times, and he even mentioned, so Jim is a really high energy guy, as you know. He comes out afterwards and tries to high five people in the front row, etc. He came out before the Barcelona show and said, "Hey, let's go. This is one of my favorite places to play. I want the crowd. We've been talking about this." He didn't do the intro on the trip, but on Madrid, he came out and during the right before the encore, right? You go through the routine, the crowd cheers, to get them to come out for the encore, in which I haven't seen forever. Jim comes out and says, and they were loud, and Jim comes out and says, "This isn't loud enough. You need to get louder." And then they did, and it was twice as loud. So again, I felt like I was at some NBA playoff where they're trying to pump the crowd up.
Y'all ready for this?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the reasons I went, and so I'll just say this quickly, that I had heard, and actually it was Emmy that said it, but I kind of knew from online that the Spanish crowd is a little more lively than the American crowd. And if you're up to being kind of old style general admission in a place that, now I'm forgetting, is it 3,000? It's either 3 or 5. I think it's 3 that fits in. And yeah, I thought the Barcelona crowd was really wild, but the Madrid was 3 times louder, and I kind of knew early. You just could kind of tell the way the crowd, you could feel the energy. And then Jim wrote on Facebook, "This was like my favorite place to play," and they were singing along, and then somebody wrote on Facebook, "Well, I don't want like when people sing along." Well, you're talking about some drunk guy who behind you in the US who doesn't know what they're doing. They're off key. They're singing it. This is different.
They're culturally much more talented at singing along than Americans.
Yes.
The
And they're
Brits,
doing
the
it
Irish, the Spanish, they're much better at it than we are. Yeah, don't take it as like, the drunk guy to your night. This is like collective, somehow singing on key together.
Exactly. And the British show did it. The Brits did it when I was there. And now they only did it for a couple songs when I was in the UK, right? Around Here and Rain King, but they were perfect. And that's kind of what got me motivated to this. But here, especially in the second show, they were singing along to almost every song. Now, of course, the Round Here and the Rain King and whatever were the showstoppers, and the place was loud. And I'm not saying they knew every lyric, but as I told Chris through text, like "Goodnight Elizabeth," they were doing the chorus, but it was never, and it was perfect. It was never enough to drown out what Adam and the band were doing. You could hear them perfectly. It was just like, again, if you're watching, like, just reminded me of watching a sports game or whatever. And Angels of the Silences, they're wait, and I was like, geez, I didn't even know how do they know these lyrics of Angels of the Silences, and they did. So they did that.
Elizabeth sing-alongs are the best. Meaning, I got to get to Europe and do a Goodnight Elizabeth sing-along.
Yeah. And so exactly. And when you're not going to experience that. You're never going to experience that in the US. So, and Angels of Silences, this happened when I saw them play it last, which I think was 2 years ago or something. There's one part, because I guess they have like someone that does like staging and stuff for them. I know that. So there's one part in Angels acoustic where even Dan goes over, and there's all 4 of them kind of playing together. I think, if I remember correctly. So Adam's still singing, and then the 4 of them are immediately to I guess it would be 3 of them. No, Charlie's there. So the 4 of them are immediately to Adam's left, our right, and and they're playing in such harmony and together. It absolutely gave me the chills because it's so good, and to have it be Angels of the Silence is acoustic. So I hope somehow that that gets up there. Chris asked me, was there any song that they were surprisingly into? And the answer, particularly in the second show, was Hard Candy. They were absolutely into Hard Candy. They knew all the songs, lyrics. I almost think they were, yeah. So anyway, my only guess is that that Hard Candy was probably their best-selling album there because of Holiday in Spain.
Fair, right?
So
That's the record.
that's the record that's their
Well
August,
known,
right?
yeah.
It probably in some ways is true. So there was no disappointments. I mean, if there was any disappointment, it actually was the two songs today. Not that the quality of the performance, but for the Barcelona show, I don't think it would happen for Madrid. You know, when he's like, "Hey, Mrs. Potter, talk to me," I almost thought that the crowd should be louder. And Miami, the crowd was excellent. They were singing along to Miami, but I almost thought it would have been out of control, like back to the ping pop days where everybody was jumping. You didn't really get that, although the crowd was lively. So I guess
Also, if you are Spanish and you can explain to us why the country of Spain loves hard candy, Sullivan Street PC at protonmail.com.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I guess that's it. I did want to thank. I try not to be too religious, or I change my opinion about religion a lot. But the fact that both nights I got a set list without asking for it, because I think both Dave and Dan saw my enthusiasm, and I try to give them some shout outs without like staring at them too much during the show. But yeah, so and I'm not really a set list kind of person because I'm like, okay, I can download that. But I thought it was really cool, and I'll probably do something with them or save them, maybe even frame them, just because it was such a cool experience. So yes, hopefully you guys can join next time, or the fans of the podcast, or head over to the UK. Those shows are great too, I'm sure, or anywhere. So okay, good. If I think of something,
Plug for Under the Aurora too, like
yes,
special mention. I just think that is one of the best songs that they have released. In I mean, that particular song, I just think it's so good, and it's always surprising when a band that's 30 plus years into their career puts out a song that holds up as well as anything they've ever done. And I really think that, I mean, A to Z, I think also is a very special song. But to me, Under the Aurora, like that could have been on This Desert Life, or it would have fit in comfortably with a number of their other albums. And not many bands are capable of pulling off something like that. I think, this late into a band's career often is like, well, the releases are good, but not like the classics. But I really think that song, there's something about it. But I haven't stopped listening to it since it came out, and I just think it's one of the best songs they have done ever. Really,
well, it's
it's
also really unique too, right?
yeah,
It's both familiar and new at the same time.
yeah.
And I do think it's a great starting the if you're gonna play three songs in the encore. Um, Now I know there's people that, and I might be one of them, that kind of think you could swap out Hanging Around, and then after this tour, at least after I visited Spain, maybe you can swap out Holiday in Spain. But I think starting the encore with three songs with Under the Aurora is a nice choice, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Great song. I have found listening to that as the song has continued to grow me as well. Great song, like kind of coming out of the train on your way to work in the morning. It's,
yeah,
because it tended to hit if I was listening to a show and kind of skipping around. Obviously, it's towards the end of a show, so kind of get hit there as I was like coming out of the train. Grand Central, just good. Get you going in the morning.
no, I agree. I mean, I love Virginia Through the Rain, and I think that could have been in any album too, Jeff. I guess, yeah, and as we've talked, I forget if it was online or offline, maybe offline, is that that is maybe their first like true ballad in a while. I mean, I guess Possibility Days, you know what I mean, where it's like kind of the old school ballad. But I guess one difference of Under the Aurora is that it's also like really unique. That they haven't really done anything like that. No, I agree. And to hear all five, so that's what I said. I said to the guy next to me, I said, you have to understand, not only does someone like me want to hear all these new five songs, but after this tour, we might never hear these songs again live. It's
Not all
possible.
five. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Not
all
all five.
five, and then maybe they play one because what songs are they playing from Somewhere in Their Wonderland? Well, luckily I got to hear God's Devotion Tides, but not a lot. So during that tour, they were
Oh,
playing
that's a
all of them.
tour, right? They played I think they played Cover Up the Sun like
Oh yeah,
once or something
yep.
like that.
And in the UK, they played that as well a couple years ago, "Cover Up the Sun." But every so often they'll bring up Palisades Park. But you're not hearing Elvis Goes to Hollywood or Dislocation a lot. And I feel that some of these songs, even if Adam loves them, you might not hear Under the Aurora after this, especially after this tour.
I'm curious. I do think these songs will have a longer life than those. And when you think about those songs, I mean, they did play them for a good number of years after
Yeah,
they
that's
were
true.
released. They've kind of, although again, part of it may be simply right. They kind of replaced those songs with the first set of Sweet songs when
Yeah,
that happened, and then now
yeah.
they replaced that with this kind of second set of Sweet songs. So maybe that's really the trigger there of is what's newest. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's true. So let's. Think if I think of something else, I will. Thank you to the people I met, and hopefully someday the three of us can go together. If not there, somewhere together. Oh, quick plug for those because I will try to publish this today or tomorrow. The Underwater Sunshine Fest is coming up in about a month. So what did we say? I think it's November 21st and
21st and
20.
22nd. Yeah.
Yeah, and is that a Friday, Saturday? I'm assuming.
That's right.
Yeah. So New York City, go see that. Adam, might make an appearance, likely does at some point, but it's him and James Campion, and putting together some of the best. I don't know, how would you describe the act? Just different kind of acts and acts that they want to promote.
Yeah.
Um,
A glimpse into their taste in music for the year,
yeah.
and what's going on and what's going through their heads. And they're actually also they just announced on Saturday night a talk related to James's new book, which is about Prince and the Revolution. But
Yes.
Adam is going to be involved in that. A couple other people too, and I'm forgetting. But yes, so you'll be able to hear them have a chat if you missed the podcast. I'm not
Because if
sure
I
actually
remember,
be able to make it Saturday night, unfortunately. But
I mean,
um,
I hate to make this up, Chris, but I think when James and Adam talked about Prince over like 5 episodes. I think that's what triggered writing the book, right? I think. I mean, James might have
sure.
written it anyway, but I
We'll have
mean,
to. We could ask James I'll try to ask James for the timeline if that's what did it or not. But
yeah, I
yeah, that's
almost think because he realized he knew so much, that they knew so much about him, and they were so enthusiastic that he goes, "Oh, I can write a book about this guy." So, okay, so let's go to the main part of today's talk, which is, as I said, the almost kind of single show. Miami and Mrs. Potters. We're going to go deep dive into the songs themselves, the lyrics. Chris had some highlighting some of their best and unique live performances, which we will link either to Chris's Instagram or the show's YouTube, etc. So I say that they were the almost kind of singles because officially they both were singles, but people don't really know they're singles, and I think neither of them. So even with the CDs, both of them had CD releases, but they were only to the radio stations. Unlike Hanging Around and Angels, they did not get in like kind of an official release that had like a unique B-side on it or whatever. And we'll talk about that. So Miami, I guess officially got released in July of 2002. I just saw that the CD single that went to radio station. And again, I never heard either of these two songs on the radio. Now, Mrs. Potter's, I was overseas when it got released, so maybe that's why I missed it. This said that the radio edit was for Miami, a minute and 30 cut out, which I didn't get a chance. I'd like to see if I can find the radio edit because it said the radio edit was 3:30 and the regular Miami is 5 minutes.
I'm pretty sure I
So
heard that in a grocery store once. Miami.
okay, and because I know I've heard a lot of Crow songs, even some non-singles. At least this is one of the first. I think we talked about this. It might have been one of the first songs that Emmy got official writing credit for. I know he does. I think it's Adam, Charlie, and Emmy. Just we were talking about the tours, and we've joked on the podcast of Miami being played a lot. If I remember correctly, it was not played when I saw them earlier this year. And this guy I saw after the audience, like, I've seen them 43 times. I'm like, what do you think of the new album? Oh, I haven't bought it yet. Okay. How do you think of the concert? great. I wish they played Miami though. That's my favorite live. And I'm thinking, well, it's okay, but I'm sure you've heard it 41 of the 43 times. And I say that because it is the eighth most played song in their concert history. And if you think about that, it was on the fourth album. That means that since the fourth album, it might be like their fifth most played song or fourth. And that's more than Colorblind and twice as much as Angels of the Silences, which is a single, had the acoustic version and came out 2 albums prior. According to what I found, even though I didn't think it was a single, it hit number 9 in the U.S. Adult Alternative chart. And the only other thing, and then I'll let you two talk. I've been talking a lot. Is I won't recap the whole thing, but he's talked quite a bit about what the song means and had to do with his girlfriend at the time coming back to Miami in an by the airport. One thing that dates us, I do like that he talks about that back then you could actually go to the gates to meet people. I don't remember that. I definitely remember going to gates to say goodbye to people departing, which even seems more wild to me now. I guess yeah, for the pickup thing. But also that even though he missed her so much and like loved her, was so excited to see her, he knew that eventually, based upon his personality, that it will end and that he would leave. And so the only other two quotes I had, and then we'll get there, is one thing he said about the song, about this world, that this life gives you both everything and nothing at the same time. And this song partly is about how to deal with that because life doesn't tell you exactly how to deal with that. And the other interesting quote I thought was, because I think this is about the everything and nothing again. The truth is, you have to hold them both. And I didn't know how to do that. How do you live? This is a great final and such an Adam line. How do you live with loving something and knowing that you're going to throw it away?
Yeah, and so part of that, I would say part of to sort of bring people in here, the behind the scenes, right? Part of the theory behind this episode, we had done episodes about songs in the past, and part of it, we were looking at these last two records we've covered, This Desert Life and Hard Candy, and part of the hard thing was that there's not a lot of alts and changes in those songs live relative to the first couple of records. Um, with Hard Candy, you can point to there's an acoustic version of American Girls, but we probably said all that we were going to say about American Girls when we covered it in that episode. Um, and the couple acoustic versions of Richard Manuel, which are sort of not wildly different. And then I was pitching Why Should You Come When I Call, but again, we probably have all said what we need to say about Why Should You Come When I Call on the episode. But Miami is, I think, one of their has become kind of one of their classic songs, and there's a really beautiful set of acoustic versions that they did in 2008. It's actually interesting kind of going back because I could have sworn they were alternating between the acoustic and the electric pretty much every night. And they played that song most of that tour, but there's only 4 acoustic versions. So there's only 4 of them. If you're looking for them, all of them are on Nugs from that 2008 tour. If you're looking, August 19th and August 29th, and then September 6th and September 18th are the 4 acoustic versions that you can listen to. But what's really interesting, kind of what Eric was referring to there, is that that's really when Adam started to do that long section about which he then truncated and has done ever since, the sort of what would you do, right? Now I you can kind of quote him pretty quickly, right? He says, if you knew everything, if you could see anything before it happened, what would you do? If you knew the love you threw away meant everything to her, if you knew this would ruin her, what would you do? That's what he does now. But that's 20 seconds of a couple of lines. And these were like multi-minute sort of improvisations around the idea of, what would you do? These things, to Eric's point, what about these things about love, and what that meant, and sort of your connections to people, and knowing knowing you're going to leave but staying, and all of these thoughts that he's having. It's also kind of interesting because I think the when you realize as he's explaining the song is how, because I don't think it's clear the first time you listen to that song, I don't think it's obvious to what extent that song is really one moment in an airport and a very visual representation of what he is seeing and feeling in that moment. I don't know if that's an obvious thing from the lyrics, but when he says it, you go, oh, like this is just one moment in this guy's life that he is sort of extrapolating into something very long lasting, right? As you said, Eric, it's the songs they played the most. So clearly it's one that's worked for them
Yeah.
on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, it's a great yeah. One, and I'll get Jeff's takes on either the background of it, or recording, or anything else that Jeff knows. I always love the Crow songs that crescendo, also, especially live. But even that's one of the reasons I like. I like songs that their songs that like their third or fourth verse is the best, and musically it crescendos up. And Miami kind of does that too. And even for people that don't know the song, it's always a good one because right they get that kind of stop in the middle of the lot, right? Where it kind of ends. And people that don't know the song, like, oh, it's over. And they start clapping. And then boom, the bus is running. And it crescendos even more powerful.
I think though, it's even people know the song. There's something about stopping that makes people
Yes.
clap. It's
Yep.
weird.
Yep.
Like you could know a song super well. Like there's that Strokes song "Hard to Explain" that has a stop, and like
Okay.
anyone who's at a Strokes concert
Yep.
knows the song "Hard to Explain." Like there's no, but like they stop and goes, yeah, and the song keeps going. Oh my god!
Yeah, and now I clap during that part too. I have to admit.
Yeah. Something
Jeff,
about our brains that
yeah, Jeff, your take before we get into more about Miami.
Well, I mean, one thing that I maybe I knew this, but it was really in doing this closer listen to it that the song is about Amy, of Amy in the Atmosphere, which
Okay.
Oh, I don't
didn't.
know if is it?
Yes,
Are
and
they
in
the
fact,
same name?
I looked at the actual printed lyrics from the CD booklet on their website to verify that that was true, because I thought, am I just hearing this? But it's specifically he mentions Amy in the lyrics,
No,
and
it's definitely the same name, but I was always under the impression that there's an Amelia who he says in live Amelia, but that was someone he dated, and Amy was like a friend. Although who knows, right?
good point. Good point. There may have been more than one Amy. So yeah, I don't know, but I didn't realize like that there was a specific name in the song. I think I was mishearing the lyric, and then
The
when
day like aiming.
yes, you're
It
right.
sounds kind of like he sounds like kind of like he's saying aiming on what we
Correct.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few places. I think maybe even more than once. But he definitely says the name Amy, which I didn't realize. So there's a specific person, and of course, it's a specific place. As I'm listening to all these versions, and my wife is like, "I really like songs where they mention a place, not just Counting Crows, but in general." And they kind of do that well. Adam, of course, has talked about how that always gets a big applause, whenever they mention a place in a location where they're playing. And I remember seeing this song performed live for the first time in New Orleans when they were previewing Hard Candy. So in 2001. And of course, it ends with the line about New Orleans, and it got a huge, applause even at the time when it was an unknown song. I think they opened with it both nights, so they've always, been really into this song. I think also something that's just interesting about the song is that the studio version and sometimes the live version, but it starts with a drum machine. It's a drum machine that's playing, and then the drummer, kicks in and joins the song in the studio version. Sometimes I think they do that live, but often it's just done with drums. I also found some versions when we were playing the live ones. I love those acoustic takes on it, by the way. I just think Adam's vocals are so good, and the way that he sings the down lines and how he moves his voice around. It's so good. But I think sometimes I found versions where it started off acoustic, and then where the drums kick in on the bus it's running, the whole band would come in. Maybe it was 2007 even, where there were some versions where it was kind of a hybrid acoustic electric, and I loved that too. I thought that was very cool. But yeah, I mean, it. I was thinking, I think I probably have about 25 songs in my Counting Crows top 10 songs. Um, Aurora just joined. It's like, oh, this is easily in my top 10, and there's like got to be 25 songs. Miami and Potters are actually both really high on my list. I think they're really enduring songs, some of the best songs they've done. I think I looked up to see, and Potters was my number one when we did Desert Life, and Miami was my number two when we did Hard Candy. So definitely two of my favorite songs, but also the songs are so different. I mean, they're great, but for very different reasons, and they just sound different. I think one of the things that's great about Miami is that it's a really kind of like a slow burn. You know, they just hold
Yep.
that tempo, and it could be because at least on the studio track there's a drum machine, but they do it this way live too. But they hold it and hold it, and but somehow, and I think it's maybe Adam's voice, how he really just brings it to a crescendo at the end vocally, and it gains its power from that. You know, I think in the studio version, live the band emphasizes it more, but it's one of his best vocal performances, and I think that his control through the song, and then at the end he just really kind of lets go, gives it just an amazing sense of power or something.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great things about the acoustic versions too is he sings it. And this is, I think, when they do stuff acoustic just in general, he's so great at singing it like totally differently, but still in a very resonant and sort of impactful way, where he can sort of find a different way into the song that is just as affecting, but quite different, right? I mean, you're really
Yep.
there's something about the electric version that sort of over like there's an attempt at overcoming sort of the melancholy, where the acoustic versions sort of emphasize that melancholy of like this is this is a pretty sad moment in time, like the idea that you're realizing that you're with someone and you're going to leave them. I've always felt very connected to it. It's kind of an because when they started doing that long thing in the late summer and early fall of 2008, um I was having that experience. Like I was legitimately being like, I was in a long relationship. I was like, I think this is probably gonna. I think I gotta end this. I think this is like coming to a moment, and that aspect, which is in the song that he talks about in the lyrics. Well, sorry, not really in the lyrics, but in when he does sort of the explication of sort of like what does it mean to sort of like leave something that may be more meaningful to someone else than you? It's a very kind of think difficult thing to negotiate emotionally because you can't you have to make a choice for yourself, right? You have to find I think in that version the like particularly well that the 918 version there might be someone perfect waiting just for you, which of course for Adam Duritz turns out there wasn't for me as well. Um but that's an incredibly difficult thing, and so it's an was a very interesting thing. Just sort of, I was listening to all the tapes that summer because they were doing nugs, and we were. It was before the streaming, but some of us found ways to share them with one another so that we could hear the whole tour. And I think the statute of limitations is passed on that, right? Um, but the just hearing them that night after night was a really interesting sort of experience in my life because I was just sort of like, is he in my head? Like this is this is interesting as he slowly started explicating more and more. Because if you go back to them, some of the first ones are very short, and then again by the end they're doing these are 8.5, 9 minute versions of Miami. Which it's interesting. I did not see an acoustic version that summer, but I did see them do it at the Wellmont because there was a stretch actually early in the tour where they were not playing Miami. One of the very rare stretches post release where they weren't playing Miami for like a few weeks, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's play Miami every night again." And they did pretty much again like the rest of the summer and fall.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was looking at yeah, and really lucky that you got to see some of those great versions. I think I mentioned on the podcast once, maybe it was even on the one of the earliest shows, is that this was one of the songs I saw. I think it was fall of or late winter, or almost winter of 2001, the end of that year, when they were like demoing some of the songs from Hard Candy, and we heard me and my buddy, we heard this and we looked to each other. We said, that song was pretty incredible. I am looking forward to this album. And I didn't feel that way. Maybe they played Black and Blue as also, right? And that's a good song, but it didn't hit. It wasn't like this one. I'm like, I knew this was kind of special. And it's funny you said that about the lyrics, Chris. It just got me thinking that the part at the end that is kind of the most energetic that you really could jump up and down to is the lyrics, of course, are the most depressing. So when the music is the most like I don't know, energetic, right? The summer is gone and so are we. And then it's like, okay, that's the anthem. The summer is gone and so are we. Let's shut it down, right? Which is kind of funny going back to Pink Pop. Yeah, I was looking. There's Jeff, I know you like some of the call. I don't know if it's a straight callback, but in addition to mentioning Amy, he mentions daylight and sunlight. He mentions angel a couple times. I've never written about angels. He likes to write about angels.
Yeah.
Is this also the first song that he drops an F bomb or even any kind of curse? Really, I think so, because he's not a real cursing lyricist for the most part.
I think
But
you're correct about that, Eric. I don't think there's a recorded Counting Crows F bomb before this song.
I remember I kind of heard it. I was like, okay, I guess he meant that. With the Spaceman in Tulsa, which by the way also uses, well, if not a drum machine, it uses the I forget. But they do have other songs where Jeff, they mention, or they use some other either percussion or beats in
Yeah.
addition to the. By the way, the guy next to me who saw them a lot in their first couple tours, he didn't recognize Jim. I think he never saw them after the first Hard Candy or about that time, and he goes, oh my gosh, this drummer is so good and so enthusiastic. I said, yeah, he's been doing it for 20 years, but that's exactly right. Okay, I guess that. By the way, fans, when they do the halo with your hands, I know it might be a little cheesy, but everybody should be putting the halo,
Like a
especially if
halo.
you're standing, above your head if possible. Come on, that's how you know that you're a hardcore Crows fan or whatever. So, um, Chris,
Real
anything
quick,
else? Yeah,
Chris, you
please.
were just talking about that. You go to a Counting Crows concert and it's like Adam is in your head. I mean, it's really unforgettable, but I think it's still the best Counting Crows show I saw was in Omaha on the Desert Life tour. And the backstory to that show is I was supposed to go to the show with my then girlfriend, and we got in an argument and broke up. And I went to the show alone. And the whole Adam comes out and like after the third song or something, he's like, I just broke up with my girlfriend and goes into this whole thing about it. And the whole show was like that. And I'm like, oh my, like every song is about that. Everything he gets into is about that. And, it was like, I think for that reason, it was such a emotional show for me because and I was thinking the same thing, like, this guy's like, singing about my life right now. This is pretty unbelievable. So, as you were telling that story, it reminded me of
Yeah.
that.
Was that
Yep.
early or towards the end of the Desert Life tour?
I think I mean, no, I saw three shows on that tour. It must have been in the middle. It was maybe probably April or May of 2000. And I saw a show in December, right when the album came out in December of 99. So this was in May or something. I saw them with live after that. So,
Yeah. Well, maybe they got back together because I think the timeline, right? Because he's with Miami, it's the end of the tour, right? They did that last section of with live, and I'm pretty sure based on that timeline, right? That's when the song Miami is happening. Is sort of like September. She had left. She'd been away for a few months, and maybe they broke up and got back together, and then you know.
or maybe it was a different girlfriend. I don't know.
Well, no, but the timeline wouldn't work. Doesn't really work for a different girlfriend. That's what I'm saying. It feels like it would have to. It feels it would have to be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
not sure.
If Adam comes on the show, we'll ask him about that.
Well, yeah, and if
Typically,
anybody, that's like my holy grail of bootlegs. I've never heard a bootleg of that show in Omaha, but God, I would love to hear it because it was great.
yeah. Oh, which is actually a good segue because if we talk about the next song, we'll talk about my holy grail of bootlegs in terms of shows I've been to.
There you go.
All right,
There you
great.
go.
So we'll go into the other almost single concert mainstay, and these are all, and yeah, as you said, it's almost, I guess, in like Rain King, but Rain King's such a unique song, right? Because that was never an official single, or kind of was, but they didn't have a video. It would have been if Adam, right? He said he wanted to like close the spigot a little bit because he thought they were getting too much exposure. But Mrs. Potter's, in fact, I had you joke when you have like sometimes when you're single, of course, you go on dates, and then when you're married, you kind of might date other couples, right? That kind of happens where you all to go together. And then if you have kids and they have kids, then you're kind of dating the whole family because they have to have kids the same age. So I had one of those this summer, like a pool party kind of thing. And somehow my wife mentioned to them that I'm a big Crows fan, and the husband's like, oh yeah, I like them too. And I used to listen to their albums on road trips. But again, he had like the first, I guess, 4 albums is what he had. But I just said, oh, what's your favorite song? And he said Mrs. Potter's, and he loved Mrs. Potter's. So people love this song. On the Counting Crows set list, official, unofficial stats, it is number 14 all time played in concerts, which is quite a bit because, again, listen, single, I don't hear it that often. Just under Big Yellow Taxi, and I couldn't believe it was played more than Recovering the Satellites, which they still play quite a bit. Um, was released as a single officially April 3rd, 2000. Again, I wasn't in the States, so I maybe. And again, that one did not, right, it was not sold, so it didn't have like any cool B-sides or acoustic. Because that Acoustic Miami, Chris, I'll have to look at my notes. I think that was on, I almost want to say one of the CD singles somewhere had the Acoustic Miami on it. Like maybe like a Hanging Around B-side or something like that. I have to go back to my but Mrs. Potter's, you're going to love what the B-sides were for this. So A was Mrs. Potter's, B was Mrs. Potter's Part 1, and C was Mrs. Potter's Part 2, which if you add them up, somehow add to more than the total. So I'm guessing they just cut
There's like an
two of
intro, like a fade in, fade out, or something like that.
yeah, or they kept the intro and the ending, but they got rid of verses. Because what always struck me about this song is that it has 4 verses, right? Even back then, I was like, okay, most songs have 3 verses that are on the radio. This one has 4, which makes it longer. And as I don't want to repeat myself, but I said this has got to be like the song that. Oh, by the way, just trivia, just because if anything else comes up, God of Ocean Tides. Adam said that that is his favorite arrangement of any song they've ever done. Because he said it would not be as good, except that everybody contributed their parts. And he doesn't think it's necessarily their best song, but he thought it was their best arrangement ever. So that's just for those that like that kind of trivia. And he's like, if you just knew what everybody added to that song so subtly that you wouldn't even know about, he just wanted to give a shout out to that. So, yeah, I this song is also one that I think, Jeff, we talked about when we did Desert Life. It like doesn't seem that, it seems like such a simple song, but it's so, and it like doesn't change that much, unlike Miami in some ways, but it's yet so great and so complex in the simpleness. And then of course the lyrics might be arguably their best lyrics, depending on, some people would definitely make a strong case for that.
Yeah, I would.
I'll talk about the video in a second. I think last I checked, which again, this really shocked me, that it has tons, given that it wasn't a single and most, non-Crows fans wouldn't know about it. It has almost 7 million views, which is a lot higher than, some of even their singles, etc. According to Wikipedia, it hit number 3 in the U.S. alternative chart, number 40 in the U.S. pop chart, and number 11 on the U.S. AAA chart, which is where they mostly chart. Chris, I said before you get into it, I kind of, it does have a video. It's a very simple video about, I actually, even though, and Adam recently has gone on record saying he doesn't think that the Crows have ever really made a great video. He just thinks that's not that he's kind of disappointed or thought they could have done things better. I thought the idea of the video is actually pretty good, about him in and out of the house party. I just think, now that I've watched it in real detail the other day, I was like, what's really bad about this video is the editing. I think they had all the right clips, but it wasn't edited right. Some of the ones were too far, and I'm like, that should be a group shot. That should be that shot. I don't know. Yeah, I
didn't
really
know about
annoyed.
your artistic interest in video editing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did study a little bit of TV production, but in this one, it really stuck out. Matt Malley, I like. He's featured a little bit when he has that little bass part. Is that on the third or fourth verse? So it's like boom, boom, boom. But anyway, do a cool close up on him. I laugh because it's not great photos of them, but just because last episode we interviewed Curtis Watson, right? CWAT as he's called, and he was talking about partying with the Crows a lot. And it like there's quick cuts to two African Americans at the party, and one of them from behind. I'm like, I wonder if that's Curtis Watson with short hair. It almost kind of looked like him. I just wanted to know because I'm guessing these are their friends that they were hanging out somewhere. I don't think they're paid actors to come into the Mrs. Potter's video for 10 seconds. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So um, okay. Did I want to say, and Jeff, you're the historian. I don't want to take too much away. And his official line of the song is, it's a song about an imaginary version of you. The song is about, and I guess an imaginary of other people. The song is about what happens when you fall in love with people who don't exist, like a person on the movie screen. And I guess famously, and I knew and then forgot and had to know again that he wrote the song about, Mrs. Potter, the actress, who I guess at that time was most famous for Con Air and Patch Adams.
Mm-hmm.
I guess she was Nick Cage's wife, I guess, in the Con Air. I only saw that when it got released.
Monica Potter.
Monica, yeah, sorry. Those Monica Potter. That was those are the two songs, the two movies and they were released in '97 and '98, right? And this came out in '99, so that makes sense. She was in two pretty big movies, and of course, attractive actress. And that he wrote about her, but met her like shortly after and right before they were recording it. Like it all happened within like a week or something. I don't know. And Jeff, you
Right.
can
And then
fill
she was actually there for them doing takes of the song or something like that. It's a
right.
wild story. I mean, that song is basically a couple of takes.
Yes.
The version on the record, which is kind of crazy too.
Recently that I think it was last year. Just again, I'm not even on social media, but I was trying to do some research for this show. And it looked like she mentioned it, I think a year or two ago. She talked about it on Facebook. I think, right, she's getting older. I think she's, I don't know, I think early 50s or maybe a couple years older. And then she's like, hey, it's pretty cool. I had a famous song written about me. Do you guys that are fans of me, did you know that? I think you do. And so some of that that's what she did. She goes, oh, it's my friend Adam's birthday today, and I want to wish him a very happy day. I am still very honored that Ken and Crows, wrote Mrs. Lullaby, and it remains a special time in my life. Yeah.
You think
And
there are
then
people who are just Monica Potter, like fans of that song, who are just Monica Potter fans? Maybe. They're just like, I'm not really into other Counting Crow songs, but I'm a big Monica Potter fan, and so this
yeah,
song
I
is
bet
mine.
you there is.
Big Con Air fans.
Yeah, exactly. Or just fans of her in general. I know, right. And he said, Jeff, to your point, he said, which sometimes you do need to, I know Adam's talked about, I can't think of any on the top of my head. I know he's talked about that. He almost talked about for the new album, but how sometimes you do have to keep working on a song or breaking it down and bringing the other band members to get it right. And then, but here he was, this was like 20 years after the release. So this is around, I guess, maybe 5-7 years ago. He was on a call with the New York Times and he said, it's funny, you can also destroy a song by breaking it down too much. You lose perspective. And that was a perfect example of how you can completely screw up something that was already great. So, yeah. So,
and this is an interesting one from a live perspective. I mean, they've mostly played the song essentially as written. Although there's a period in 2006 where they were playing versions that had a sort of a spoken word section in the middle, for lack of a better term. Not really alts in the traditional sense. It's really just Adam talking. And what he was talking about was that the back half of the song is about going up to Pioneer Town and up in Joshua Tree and playing a festival and singing. We talked quite a bit about that with Dave Lowry when he, if you want to go back to that episode, listeners, when we were talking about the making of this desert life. And what had happened was that there was a fire in Joshua Tree that had basically burned most of the buildings to the ground. But the thing that was standing was the palace. He says, when he says the palace, it's Pappy and Harry, it's Pioneer Town Palace. And so he kind of tells that story, and it's interesting. There's not a ton of tapes from that 2006 tour, unfortunately, and not all of them have Mrs. Potter's, and not all of them are very good tapes. Unfortunately, there's like one from a show I went to, but the tape was just, it was so boomy that I was like, I can't send this to my fine co-hosts and make you listen to this. But he goes in a lot of different directions and talking about, the girl on the movie screen, um, coming down, and that might not be what you expected, but you still have these things that are real, which is like your friends and standing up on a stage with them and singing. And tells a nice story about there's a guy named Johnny Legs who apparently was their friend who had passed away. I believe he was a big bootleg guy. Um, he had like passed away, and so Adam weaves that in one of the versions. If you're on the Crowstown archive, you can find some versions. I can't find any of them on YouTube, but there's a few from the summer that are pretty good. If you go look through the 2006 tapes. But yeah, what do you guys think of that? Because that's really the only time they've ever done like Mrs. Potter alts, and they basically stopped after a few weeks in 2006, and then decided to never do that again.
Yeah, it was an interesting story. And I mean, Eric, you've been there, right? Like,
Yeah, and in fact, it motivated me to.
you got the video.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did the video. It's on a YouTube short, and I also just looked at who they were playing, and it's so weird because I'm also a Pete Yorn fan. I mentioned it. I tend to wear a Pete Yorn shirt at the Crows concerts. It's just a thing. And actually, Millard actually mentioned something about it when I just saw him in Spain. He's like, "Oh, Pete Yorn, I think I played with him, once or whatever." And so I heard that he played at Pioneer Town, and then I just looked up yesterday, and he's playing in January. So I'm gonna go. I've never seen live music there. It's on a Friday night. Yeah, it's like actually a pretty famous barbecue place. It's in the middle of nowhere because, Joshua Tree, although it's getting built up a little, is kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's about 15 minutes off to the side a little. You got to go down this other street and then kind of in the middle of the nowhere. There is like behind it, there's like, I think it's the only other place that didn't get destroyed, or maybe they rebuilt it. Like almost like it looked like it would be like what you would think of a pioneer town for kids or something, but I think you could shoot like a Western there too, which is why it might have been built originally. I don't think it was supposed to be a theme park kind of thing, but people rave about that. I've had a beer there, but people rave about the barbecue there as well. And it's a very small place. I think it fits 300. I mean, for a concert, because I see where the concert is, the concert area, it's maybe 300 or 500. I mean, it is small.
I feel like they
So
got to do live band karaoke there, so we can all shout out some songs against the clang of electric guitars, like
There you go.
collectively. There you go.
exactly.
I would say, in terms of Jeff was talking about his sort of bootleg White Whale. The one I have, so I saw them 3 times in the summer of 2006. One twice at Jones Beach, but also once in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the week before with my friend Maggie. And so I was going through. It's just like there's like a lot was going on in my life, and I felt like that show was felt very transformative to me. The one in Hershey, I've never had this feeling before. It was literally like they'd sort of like hypnotized me for about 80 minutes. I have this distinct recollection of Adam like pulling his arm down at the end of Rain King, and it was just sort of like they'd snapped the illusion. I was like, ooh, that was something. And that is actually why I wasn't sure I was going to go see them at Jones Beach, because I was going to go see them. That's kind of part of when I decided, I was like, oh, I see this band a lot. I'm going to go. They're playing twice at Jones Beach next week. I'm going to go see them twice at Jones Beach. And there was a version of Mrs. Potter's, which I'm pretty sure would have had the alts. But there's no tape of that. And it's one of those where I've always wondered, like, is the show as good as my memory? Like, was that show spectacular, or was I just in the right place in the right time, and the band was as good as they normally are on like a Friday night in Hershey, Pennsylvania? I maybe we'll never know the answer to that question. Maybe they'll, or guys, I think you got everything. Throw up some more whole tours on Nugs if anyone's listening. Just throw that 2006 tour up on Nugs too. There's a couple, by the way, there's good tapes of some of those shows, because that's the first time in 2006 they streamed a couple of the shows. So they were like, they did it on the website. So I guess they were starting to think towards what ended up being, well, what if we just did every show? But it goes that far back, which is interesting.
Oh yeah, that would have been about the time they started that, right? Because I know that Nugs, I guess, or something was in full force by like '08, definitely. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's worth Jeff, since this might be the last time we go really deep into Mrs. Potter's. We might have done this for Desert Life, but I think it's worth. I want to just not dissect, but I want to highlight some of the genius lyrics of this. They might have done that take quickly, but I want to know how quick it took him to write these lyrics, because I mean they are so good. And I know he spends a lot of time, nowadays, he says, on his lyrics, but and it's, I almost wanted to say this was like, so he's always talked about himself, and then of course, like, even like Recovering the Satellites was so much about like him, and his ascent to stardom and coming back down and stuff. So I guess it's not the first time he talked about himself, or maybe in third thing, but I did find it interesting, like when he's like, there's a piece of Maria of every song that I sing, because that's a little different. That's like commenting on his songwriting, which is a little different than him talking about him being star, and then the line about if dreams are like if dreams are like movies, memories, films about ghosts. That line is so good that that's what they created their greatest hits. Of course, they called it films about ghosts.
Which
And
of
also
course sort of
the movies filmed at Pioneer Town is kind of an interesting just
Yes,
connection there that I hadn't really thought about. But he's sort of talking about memories and movies and then also Pioneer Town, which was at one point a place where it was a film set.
yeah, and people might not realize, especially if you live in LA, which has like the worst light pollution of the planet, maybe outside of China or something like that, is that people do from LA drive to Joshua Tree to see the stars, basically. So that's why it kind of hits now a little harder about the to lie down beneath the bowl of stars, because definitely people go out there just for that. And as I said, until I met Lowry, I did not know this place existed. I thought it was just some saloon that he made up,
Right. Or the
like
Hollywood
something.
Palace. I thought he was singing about the Hollywood Palace, which is a
Yes.
venue in LA. We stand up in the palace like it was some old pioneer town,
Yep.
bar in the cowboy
Exactly.
days. I really thought it was referencing that. And then, when I listened to the Lowry show, it was like, wow, that's mind blowing. I didn't realize the whole history to the place.
Yeah, I love that line about the blue light reflections that color my mind when I sleep. And then this is almost like, such great wordplay, and the lovesick rejections that accompany the company I keep. That's yeah. When I was looking at this for the show, I even texted my friend who off and on has loved the Crows, and talked about the razor perceptions that cut just a little too deep, and he definitely appreciated that.
yeah. I know Adam would say like, song lyrics are not poetry, but this is probably like the closest
Yes.
he's gotten to this. I mean, this could be a poem, right? It would be a really good poem.
Yeah, I thought that about three, and they're all three my favorite. I absolutely agree with what Adam's saying. I know what he's saying, but this song, and spoiler alert for the future, I think this song, Possibility Days, and With Love from A to Z are the closest to actual poetry, and not surprisingly, I think those are maybe the top three of their lyrics of all time. Jeff,
Yeah.
you made me laugh a little, not laugh, but you made me think about, because he talks in Goodnight Elizabeth about the Queen of California, and then here he's talking about the King of Hollywood. So, so,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
so you got the royalty together. Yeah. So
Which
I
is sort
think
of self-referential. I mean, he's sort of
yes,
saying when he sort of explains it in one of those versions, right? He's like, you know, the last king of Hollywood shatters his glass on the floor is the feeling of getting tired of Hollywood, needing to leave, and it's presumably that's a feeling he was having. So
Right.
she's the queen of the rain. He's the king of the rain, but he's also the last king of Hollywood. Apparently, maybe.
and
Yeah.
I want to know if he actually, because I hate to admit I might have done it once when I was young and drunk and stupid, but I want to know if he actually threw down his glass somewhere and broke it around this time, either at the saloon or
At the
not.
Viper Room, maybe.
Yeah, at the Viper Room, maybe. So, okay. Any other thoughts about?
But I think
Oh,
it's also it's kind of
yeah,
interesting. I think it's similar to Miami. I think it's interesting, sort of similarity between these two songs. They're both essentially things happening in Adam's head, right? Basically, all of the action in Miami, other than the sort of the literal things like the plane going down and stuff like that, is basically a story about what he's thinking about in that moment. It's kind of Mrs. Potter too, right? There's actually very little action. You think about
Mhm.
it, right? A lot of this is very much presumably you wake up in mid-afternoon and you start thinking about this stuff, and it just sort of, these are the things that go through your mind. Um, so they're interesting in sort of songs in a lot of ways, and also kind of songs about traveling a little bit, movement, right? Going up to Pioneer Town, someone flying in, and then going to New Orleans. It's an interesting thread that I hadn't really thought about, and so you're talking about now. You kind of, they are a little bit linked in that way, and again, in a way that I think a lot of the band songs are sort of linked together. You could probably pull some of those threads, but um, both kind of interesting in that way that we're
And about endings as well. They're both about something that's ending. So in Miami, it's about a relationship that's ending, and in Mrs. Potter's, it's about a time in his life that is ending as he is going to, give up his role as the king of Hollywood. And they're both about, in some ways, about like maturity and wisdom, I guess. Another sort of connection. I always thought that Potter's, I mean, it's just one of my favorite songs by them, but it is about a time when he doesn't want to wake up in mid afternoon hungover anymore. He doesn't want to have a seat at the bar anymore. He's there's a wisdom to it, a kind of a resigned wisdom. But I think also, I mean, we probably mentioned this when we talked about the Desert Life show, but it's one of their longer songs, Potter's, and also it's the song that he played for Interscope when they had changed over, or the label, I guess it was Geffen, had sold to Interscope. So the suits from Interscope come in to hear how the new album is going, and he plays them Potter's and says, "Here's the first single," and they're just going, this is a label that has Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Eminem, and they just can't even wrap their heads around, this song and what he wants to do and everything else. So, but yet it's, he's clearly very determined that this is what they're going to do, and that he wants to do this as a single. And he sat down with the head of Interscope and convinced them that this was going to be a song that they were going to release as a single, and they ultimately did. But
I think, and it's interesting that Miami had a radio edit, because this one does not have a radio edit. And I remember
right.
that was the fight, right? Wasn't one of the things that they said you could, maybe if you cut a verse, maybe we'll think about it. And
Right.
he's like, nope, that will not be happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but you're right. You just got me thinking about The Hangover. But starting the whole song with waking up in mid-afternoon when it all hurts the most, and that's so great. And obviously being hungover. I mean, being hungover comes out and hanging around. And then
Holiday in Spain.
Holiday in Spain. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about. And I almost think about the swirling, just which by the way is an amazing line. The swirling, it's something that we all know, and yeah, let's just say there's been a lot of times that I was hungover trying to put my arm in the swirling, dust sparkle jet stream, because I couldn't do much else and I couldn't get myself out of bed.
The other thing I'm thinking about as we were talking about this and the parallels, if they're both about endings, they're both about knowing the ending before they happen, right? Obviously in Miami, pretty clearly, right, he talks about like, I know it's over, but it goes on for a while longer, the relationship. But if he's giving up his seat as the king of Hollywood in Mrs. Potter, he doesn't move out of LA until I think it's like 2002. So that song's written, latest it could have been written is somewhere in 1999, right? Something like that. So there's interestingly in both like that sense of like knowing something is ending, but it not being over yet and sort of lingering, and that sort of in between feeling, that feeling again, like from that Miami version of like of everything and nothing, right? Of all these things together.
Yeah.
He's a really good, I think Adam Duritz is a really good songwriter, and this is a very good band, and we should start a podcast about that.
I like these guys. They should stick with this whole music thing.
But you're funny, Chris. Your point about the lyrics and the poetry is, and that's what got me to like highlight some other lines again. The last one I think I highlighted was, which I think another classic, but is the price of a memory is the memory of the sorrow it brings. I mean, I'm not coming up with that no matter how much I try. That is a great line. But one of the reasons I said this, when I looked up the video, and Chris, I think you stepped away for a second, I said it has like 7 million views, which is a lot of views, which an old song that wasn't, an official, or wasn't as single maybe as we think it is that when I looked at the comments for the video, everybody was commenting about a different line that was their favorite line. Where on some of the other Crow songs, there might be 2 or 3 lines that are always highlighted. And this one, it's like, oh, this is my favorite line about the circus or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
someone, the last, I guess, point, which is not a lyric, but someone made a point. I don't think it was me. Maybe it was in that New York Times article about it that said this might have been the first song, the idea of it that hinted to the dissociative disorder that definitely comes up more in Saturday night, Sunday mornings. I think a little less than Hard Candy, maybe a little bit, but the idea of that, what's real and what's the real me, and maybe the girl I think I love isn't even the real her, and yeah.
They also they debuted this song at the Shim Sham Club in May of
Oh,
1999. Just throwing back to the Curtis episode, um, and you can actually watch that. I don't know, Chris, if it's your video, but it's on your
Oh, it's
YouTube
definitely
page.
not my video. I think we talked about this on that episode of the Shim Sham Show. It's the owner of the club's video. He like filmed it.
Yeah.
And that was an underground, not traded video for a long time. And I think it popped out maybe 10 years after the show happened or something like that. And so I'd,
Do we know who the women on stage with him are? I mean, are they from a band or some New Orleans
oh, I
band? I
think
always wondered.
I think I mentioned that on the Shim Sham. Now I forget. I think one of them was in a band or a singer, and but I said if you watch the video,
Probably playing guitar.
I thought they weren't. Like when you first watch it, it comes across as just like 2 fans of the band
Yeah,
that got
right,
asked to come up on stage,
right,
and
right.
then I think I did find out later that one of the two was in a band that, because didn't other bands play that same day? I think maybe for the Shim Sham, yeah.
Yeah, there's
So
so many people on and off the stage, and
yeah.
so then Monica
Oh,
Potter is in Patch Adams. Adam,
no, right.
Patch Adams about a doctor. His parents are doctors. I mean, come on, the
Exactly.
connections are just everywhere.
With love from A to Z, right? Yeah,
I think I'm now overthinking it.
no, that's pretty funny though. Did so, Chris? Anything else about about these songs or the live shows or
I think we covered. Although I didn't mention the other runner up we had for this desert life in terms of another song to talk about was Saint Robinson's, which was one of your favorites. If you've never heard any of the acoustic versions from late 2003 or 2004, go find those. They're very cool and very different.
And
But
who
again,
knows?
not an album. Those are really the only alts from that album, interestingly. Whereas obviously we could spend many more hours and will at some point talking about various changes to versions of songs from August and everything after. So
yeah, and who knows? Any of those songs we mentioned, even American Girls. Maybe we'll do a show on that at some point or something. Who knows? But well, thank you, Jeff. Anything else about the history? It is interesting, though, right? About how these songs are considered Crow's classics, and not just by fans, but even in the concert. I think they're very unique in that way. That these are the two post August concert staples, if you will. Yeah, kind of right. You almost think they're singles, and the fans want to hear it. Yeah, classics to these
Yeah, I
days.
think in the show that we did on Desert Life, I mentioned Clay Jones as this North Carolina bluegrass musician who plays on 4 songs on Desert Life, and he contributes acoustic guitar to Potter's. And I think that he's one of those like unsung heroes of this Desert Life because he shows up on 4 different songs, and I think plays sort of key parts on them too, and does some really nice work. But yeah, I think Mrs. Potter's is one of those songs that when I play it for people who aren't Counting Crows fans, they always love it. It's like it just there's something about this song that people love, despite the fact that it's long. But Adam always said that part of the challenge of writing a song like that was that it doesn't seem long, even though
Mm,
it's a long song.
yes.
It doesn't seem like it, and I don't know what it is. Whether it's the instrumentation, I think that sometimes they do upbeat songs like a 1492 or something that are like in that fifth gear. But this is an example of, I think, an upbeat song that's perfect for them. It's like right in their wheelhouse, almost like a Rain King or something, where it's like it just hits that sweet spot of being an upbeat song, but it's not so fast in like almost a punk rock tempo or something. Maybe that's why it's like it's an upbeat song, but and it feels short even though it's long. The great lyrics, the instrumentation. I don't know. There's something just really magic about. I mean, I think both of these songs, but Potter's is one of those ones that I've never found anyone who doesn't like this song. Even people who aren't Counting Crows fans are like, "Oh, that's great," you know.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason that that they play it regularly. I know it is a longer song, but it doesn't take like Adam sings his heart out on it, but it doesn't take a ton out of him like some of the other songs. Either the range or the energy, right? For as I said, when I saw him play 1492 afterwards, he's like, now I remember why I don't sing this song very much. It's very hard to sing, and it takes a lot
Right.
out of me. Hey, by the way, if you're mentioning other instruments, it's worth noting. I forgot. I had one little note here that Miami does have a little bit of strings in it.
True. Yeah.
And it said, which I never looked up before. It says strings conducted by, so not played by, conducted by Jerry Hay, but arranged by Charlie and Adam. The horns and strings arranged by Charlie and Adam. So,
And Jerry Hay played flugelhorn on Carriage.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that's one of the few. Chris, as much as we keep connecting to these new names, we keep coming up with new ones. I mean, I was like, oh, I know C Watt now, and I know this, and then now we got to learn the official horn or the strings arranger. Sorry, now
Maybe we got to get Jerry on the show.
Yeah. Well,
It sounds like it.
Well, thanks, guys. This was a fun show. So
Always fun to geek out on Counting Crows for an hour with you guys. Always.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it too. So we'll see everyone else. We have all sorts of exciting ideas for the next year or so on Sullivan Street. So hope to have you join us then. Goodbye.